What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. I'm recording my fifth overall video in a row, my third review. If you guys want to see my thoughts on Fear Street Prom Queen or on Time Cut, those are both on my channel. They've gone up probably a couple days ago at this point. I'm scheduling releases for weekly now. Today's review is one that I saw the trailer for multiple times in theaters, and to be honest, I really hated the trailer. It looks to me like the most single, generic, boring, pointless trailer of all time. I thought the movie was completely worth skipping based on the trailer I saw in theaters and the one I saw at home. And then when it came to streaming, it is currently on Peacock. So it came to streaming for free. It's a pretty short movie. It only runs an hour and 25, and that's with credits. So I figured, okay, it's short. It's at home now. I can sit down and watch this, and I'm going to give it a chance. And you know what? In some ways, I was pleasantly surprised. While this is not going to be a world beater that's on the top of your list forever, this is a movie that I think is going to exceed expectations if you come in as jaded about the trailer as I did. I'm talking about 2025's The Woman in the Yard. My first complaint about this movie is the title is just as generic and lame and boring as the trailer is. The Woman in the Yard is the worst title of all time. That being said, the movie is not as bad as the title or trailer would have you believe. Let's talk about it. And again, spoiler free. It's been in theaters for a while, but it's just come to streaming a couple days ago. Currently on Peacock, so I will not spoil it. Spoiler free review for The Woman in the Yard. This movie is written by Sam Stefanak, who I don't really know any of their credits, don't recognize them as a writer, but directed by Jaume Collet-Serra, who has directed many kind of underrated movies that I really enjoy. I'm talking about the House of Wax remake from the mid-2000s, The Shallows with Blake Lively, a very solid shark movie, Orphan, which has got one of the best twists ever, so has directed many solid horror films, so I came in kind of like, maybe I'll give this a chance. Starring Danielle Deadwyler as Ramona, Peyton Jackson as Taylor, and Estela Cahija as Annie. And basically, the spoiler-free synopsis of this movie is that a woman is kind of reeling. She was just in a car accident where she permanently lost her leg, injured herself, or I don't think lost her leg, but at least injured herself and has herself in a full leg brace. So is considerably injured coming off this car accident where she also lost her husband. Her husband died and she got really badly wounded, and she has two kids now and is struggling mentally, emotionally, financially, and the kids are kind of living in squalor right now, and they come across a woman sitting in their yard in dark garb, and they have to figure out kind of how do they survive, how do they get past their traumas, and how do they deal with this random mysterious woman sitting all in black in a chair in the middle of their yard. That is basically as good as I can get spoiler free here. First things first, the biggest strength of this movie, in my opinion, is the realism. You're meeting the family early on. You're seeing how the family runs with this struggling, injured mother with her husband now gone, with two young kids running around, being energetic, trying to live their lives in a situation where they are emotionally damaged and financially hurt and in a weird place right now. And the realism of how this family deals with their struggles is really, really well done. How the family talks to each other, how they relate to each other, everything about the dynamic of these three main characters is really, really wonderful. And this is going to go into my next positive too, which I have is acting/chemistry. I really, really enjoy the three main actors. And you guys know that I talk about the hardships of dealing with child actors a lot of times because they overact or they pull faces or they can't keep a serious face. But as much as I want to give major stars to Danielle Deadwyler, who played Ramona, the struggling mother in this movie. She is so good, and her face conveys so much with limited dialogue and just facial reactions and changes in tone. Her eyes, her mouth, she gives so much away minimalistically as an actor. She's so good. But the two children in this movie, Peyton Jackson playing the older brother Taylor, and Estela Cahija, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, playing the younger daughter Annie, are both so good, both in how they deal with each other and creating the bonds in their family when they're laughing, playing, happy, afraid, nervous, quietly emoting with things. They're so good. in how they relate to each other and how they play their natural characters as actors and as a collective family. It's realistic, it's fun, it is not overexposed, everything feels so down to earth about this struggling family. They portray their emotions together and separately so well. Hats off to all three of these actors. Excellent. The theme in this movie, which I will not spoil because it will give a lot of things in this movie away. That being said, I do think the movie itself gives this away very, very early on. I think right away, when you watch this movie, you get about 2 or 3 minutes in. It could be just me being kind of a veteran of these kind of movies, but a few minutes into the movie, you kind of know what's going on. You know what the woman in the yard kind of is, who she is, what she's doing there. You kind of get a sense pretty quickly of what's happening and where the movie is going. This was spoiled for me very quickly. I was 3 or 4 minutes in and I was like, I'm calling the ending. And while I wasn't perfectly on the nose with everything, I got the theme and I got the overlaying meaning very quickly. So I think the movie's going to spoil it for you before you even get halfway in. That being said, I think the theme, while heavy-handed, and while it does smack you in the face, especially toward the end of the movie, the last 20 minutes are really heavy-handed, I think that it deals with the theme pretty well. We've seen this theme used lately, the last 4 or 5 years, over and over again. And again, I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to give you examples of what movies use this theme because then you're going to know what I'm talking about, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers. But the way they deal with these particular themes and these kind of meanings and the subtext and the overlays in this movie, this is one of the better movies at handling this particular theme, in my opinion. While I don't like how heavy it is in the end, the first 2/3 or 3/4 of this movie handle it very, very well. And I think this would be a prime example of a good way to deal with this theme in this movie as compared to some others. It's not my favorite of this theme, but I would say it's in my top 3 favorite movies that deal with this particular theme. And I'm sorry I keep saying the word theme, but if I tell you exactly what it's trying to convey, then it's going to give some things away and I don't want to. Shadows. They use a lot of shadows in this movie. The woman in the yard in particular is a pretty cool character, a pretty cool specter. And again, while it gets pretty heavy, I do like her movements. I do like her use of shadows. I do like when they choose to keep her veiled and concealed and when they choose to expose her. They use her for a couple jump scares, and while those jump scares aren't always earned, they are kind of cheap at times, they are pretty effective. Jump scares for me generally work because I have a neurologic condition, and if you're an easy jumper, you're going to jump at some of these things. That being said, it doesn't feel scary necessarily. It feels more of a thriller in most ways than a straight horror film, but I do like their uses of how they move around the woman in the yard, when she chooses to be more concealed and when she chooses to be scary, and the use of shadows in this movie is done pretty well. Now to get to the couple big negatives. There's only a few negatives that I have for this film, but they do loom large, no pun intended. Number one, predictability. Again, when you watch the movie and you get 5 minutes in and you can call almost everything that happens, you're not going to have as much fun watching it. That's why I'm trying to be very vague in my descriptions about theme and kind of what they're going for, because I want you to go in as blind as possible. And the trailer doesn't give anything away, but the trailer is so underwhelming as a trailer that it's not even worth watching. So go in blind, don't read anything, don't watch anything. If you could help it, just watch this thing on your own. And if you haven't seen a bunch of other films that deal with these topics, then I think you're going to like this. I think how much you like this movie depends on how much you can predict and how much of this kind of subgenre of horror that you've seen before. If you've not seen a lot of it, I think this one is a particularly good example in the genre. But if you've seen a lot of them, then it's going to be like, oh God, another one of these. We're going to try and do this again. Okay. It's going to feel like it's not worth your time. So very predictable for me. And if it is for you as well, then you might not like this movie quite as much. The other big thing for me is the ending gets too ambitious. When you know where it's going, it's going to try and subvert your expectation, but it doesn't really do that. The ending doesn't veer you off track or go in any different directions like you would like it to. Once you kind of figure out what it's going for, you're like, oh, I hope they add some things to it and make it a little unpredictable and kind of pull us off track. And they don't do that. They keep us on track the entire time while also being a bit vague in the world they're building. It gets really It's somehow, this movie is somehow obvious in where it's going, but also ambiguous in the way that it gets you there. So it's both predictable and a little bit weird. It turns into kind of a fever dream at certain points, and it kind of tries to lose you, I think, in an effort to be a little bit different and set itself apart, but it does it in a way that is not very linear. It doesn't feel like good storytelling at the end, which is a shame because of the way the dialogue is written, the story is written, and the characters portray the story for the first 2/3 or even 3/4 of this movie. It's really well written and really well accurately portrayed, in my opinion, of this family and of their relationships. And then it gets to the end, and like I said, it's both simultaneously predictable and a bit too ambitious for its own good. So that being said, I'm not going to be quite as hard on this movie as some others are. I've seen people really excoriate this, and if I was going based on the trailer and title, I would excoriate it too. That being said, I think it's worth a watch. I didn't hate watching this. While it wasn't something that's going to stick with me or something that I need to watch ever again, this is not going to linger at the end of the year on my best of films list or anything. Maybe something I'll never even think about again. That being said, I'm glad I watched it because I came in with such low expectations that this drastically exceeded those expectations, and I think it's another worthwhile addition to Jaume Collet-Serra's collection of movies. It's not as good as Orphan, The Shallows, or House of Wax, but it is a decent enough horror movie that has enough turn your brain off and enjoy the movie, and does incorporate its theme very well, basically based on the strength of the actors. Again, Peyton Jackson, Estella Cajica, and especially Danielle Deadwyler do a very nice job putting you in this world. I wish the ending took us in a different direction and did so in a different way. That being said, it's not nearly as bad as what the hype would have you believe it is. So I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. Again, it's not going to be a world beater at the end of the year, but I think it's worth watching, and it's worth watching right now. It runs an hour 25 total. When you cut out credits, it runs like an hour and 22. It's a short watch, and it's available on Peacock. So if you got Peacock, check it out for free. It's worth checking out, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. So tell me in the comments down below what you think of The Woman in the Yard. Let's talk about it. Also, go back and check out my other film reviews and Steeler reviews in the last couple of weeks that I've got scheduled. I've got more coming up. So if there are more recent films in the last year or two that you'd like to see me review, please tell me in the comments down below what they are. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like these film deep dives, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Stay scared and stay cool in this heat.